Welcome back to Miles Reads. I'm Miles. Today, we're diving into the book Simple Thinking by Japanese author Akira Morikawa. While the name might not ring a bell, his company's creation, the messaging app Line, will be familiar to many young people, especially fans of popular Korean dramas where it frequently appears. In short, it's known as the Japanese and Korean equivalent of WeChat, with very similar functions. The author, Akira Morikawa, has had a rich and varied career. He started out at a Japanese television network, earning an enviably high salary at a young age. However, after several years, he chose to leave for Sony, taking a 50% pay cut. Even more surprisingly, after a few years at Sony, he once again took a pay cut to join a startup, the Japanese branch of Hangame, a famous South Korean online gaming portal. During his 4 years at Hangame, he led the team to capture the #1 market share in Japan's online gaming industry. Later, he helped launch Line in Japan from scratch, growing its user base past the 100 million mark. To put that in perspective, it took Twitter 49 months and Facebook 54 months to reach 100 million users. Line did it in just 19. As the former CEO of Line, Morikawa clearly has a special talent for rapidly building a product into an industry leader. So what is his secret? After reflecting on his experiences, Morikawa concluded that it all comes down to his unique way of thinking. For example, as a business owner, you might believe that business is war. You feel you must always be ready to battle competitors and find ways to increase company profits to ensure everyone prospers. As a middle manager, you might think, I need to implement all the rules and regulations properly to create a stable and predictable work environment for everyone. And as a regular employee, you might feel, I need to complete the tasks my boss assigns me carefully. In the process, I have to be mindful of my colleagues' feelings while ensuring the quality of my work to get that promotion. These are the thoughts most of us have. However, the author points out that these assumptions might be completely wrong. What we truly need is simple thinking. This is the core of the book. So what exactly is simple thinking? Today, we'll explore it in 3 parts. First, what is simple thinking? Second, what stops us from thinking simply? Third, how can we achieve simple thinking? Let's start with the first point. What is simple thinking? Does it mean we should keep our thoughts simple, not overcomplicate things, and just dive into tasks as they come? Like the common saying, the most important thing in life is to be happy and not worry about the rest? Not at all. The simple the author talks about is actually simplification. Everything we face has layers of complexity, but beneath these appearances, there is always a critical essence. Simple thinking means that all decisions and judgments should be based on this essence. You think only about the essence and cut away the non-essentials. In life, however, most people think, this is important and that's important too, which scatters their energy and leads to them accomplishing nothing. The author once made this mistake himself. Early in his career at Hangame, fresh out of an MBA program, he was eager to apply all the trendy management techniques he had learned. He created complex regulations and corporate goals, only to find they were impossible to implement. The key personnel, like the game designers, neither understood nor cared about his plans, and the business stalled. One day, he asked the designers, "Why aren't these policies working?" They told him frankly, "What's the point of all this fancy stuff you're doing every day? To run a company, you first have to make a great product. That's what's most important." This was a wake-up call for the author. He suddenly realized he had been distracted by problems that weren't truly important. It's like owning a restaurant. Does it make sense for the owner to hand the chef a pile of business metrics and research reports to analyze? A chef's job is to cook delicious food. Distracting him with paperwork and analysis will only let the food get cold. The survival of a restaurant ultimately comes down to whether the food is good and the service is great. Everything else is secondary. But at that time, the author's understanding of simple thinking was still shallow. It wasn't until another event that he had a true epiphany. By then, Hangame was Japan's largest online PC gaming company. In 2004, Morikawa's team foresaw the growing popularity of feature phones and the huge potential of the mobile gaming market. They launched a gaming website for feature phones. But their thinking at the time was that PC games were the core business, so they should focus on PCs and treat mobile as secondary. Much later, Morikawa realized this strategy went against the essence of business. What is the essence of business? It's to continuously provide users with what they truly want, building a symbiotic ecosystem where both users and the business benefit. When an operator's starting point becomes protecting the company's important business, the seeds of future failure have already been sown. And that's exactly what happened. In 2006, a competitor focused all its energy on developing a gaming site for feature phones, offering users better games and rising rapidly. As a result, Hangame completely lost its leading position in the feature phone gaming market. This experience filled the author with regret. He realized that even though he had seen the trend and launched a product, he had tried to have it all, thinking this is important and that's important too. In the end, he lost his most fundamental position. This painful failure taught him a profound lesson. Simple thinking means doing only the one thing that is most important. And that means being prepared to abandon past successes and devote yourself completely to creating value for users. Therefore, when the trend shifted from feature phones to smartphones, everyone on Morikawa's team understood one thing. The only path to success was to create the product that would satisfy users the most. This meant they had to bet all their resources on the smartphone business. The team made a resolute decision to shed all historical baggage and focus single-mindedly on making their product easier for users. Meanwhile, the companies that had been hugely successful in the feature phone era were still trying to protect their past glory. For example, they required users to use the same complicated ID authentication from the feature phone era when registering on a smartphone. This approach benefited the company but was a major inconvenience for users. Morikawa's team, on the other hand, did everything they could to simplify the process. Not only did they not require old IDs, but they even skipped authentication through Facebook or Twitter, allowing users to register simply with their phone number. This single change dramatically improved the user experience. It was this dedicated focus on creating value for users that ultimately propelled Hangame to become one of the world's top online gaming portals. This journey taught the author a profound lesson. A person can typically only do one thing well at a time. To succeed, we must pour all our energy into doing what truly matters. This principle sounds simple, so why do most people fail to follow it? This brings us to the book's second question. Why can't we think simply? It's because we are often misled by superficial values. Superficial values are the things we accept by convention or assume to be right. These things often mislead us, scatter our energy, and cloud our judgment. For instance, we often say that we should be considerate of others' feelings and be diplomatic in our communication. This isn't wrong in itself, but in a professional setting, being overly diplomatic can lead to serious problems. During a meeting to discuss a proposal, a colleague might say to you, "Your proposal looks great, I can tell you put a lot of work into it. There's just one tiny thing I think we might need to adjust." You hear the praise and feel pleased, assuming the overall direction is fine and only minor tweaks are needed. But what your colleague really meant was that your proposal has a major flaw and needs a complete overhaul. They were just too polite to say it directly. Similarly, many leaders, when coaching their subordinates, feel too awkward to offer direct criticism, even when work is subpar. Instead, they hope that praise and encouragement will lead the employee to discover the problem on their own. As a result, the employee thinks they're doing a great job, the problem persists after the conversation, and the leader's expectations are never clearly communicated. The author argues that in these situations, it's better to be frank than to be overly cautious. The essential value of communication is to ensure the other person understands your message accurately and without ambiguity. The truth can sometimes be hard to hear, but at least it prevents people from working under a cloud of misunderstanding, which is critical for a company. If we place too much importance on superficial values like maintaining harmony and sparing feelings, we will drift off course without even realizing it. Beyond these small matters, many major decisions, and even the processes and methods we take for granted, can be trapped by superficial values. For example, many large companies have an incredibly complex performance review system with dozens of evaluation criteria, each with different rating levels. The process involves self-assessment, manager ratings, and peer reviews, all culminating in a final score. The manager then has to meet with the employee, use careful communication techniques to deliver gentle feedback, and avoid hurting their morale. The entire process can take 1 or 2 months and is incredibly time-consuming and draining. But everyone is used to it, believing this is how evaluations are supposed to be. The author admits his company initially did the same. But then Morikawa began to question it. Are all these tedious scores, ratings, and procedures really that important? Could they just be superficial values? What is the true purpose of a performance review? Clearly, the goal of a review isn't to assign a score. It's to convey the reality of the situation, help each employee understand the gap between their performance and expectations, and thereby motivate them to grow quickly. With this in mind, the author established a new standard for performance reviews at Line, and it was just one question: would it make a difference if this person wasn't here? This standard is simple, direct, and easy to understand. If an employee is deemed to be someone whose absence wouldn't make a difference, they must improve their work immediately or be asked to leave. In our professional lives, we are often constrained by all sorts of conventional rules, habits, and methods. But it's highly likely that these things everyone else is doing are merely adherence to superficial values, which misleads our thinking about what is truly important. Examples of being misled by superficial values are everywhere. When looking for a job, do you prioritize a company's fame, salary, or location? These things are important, but when this is important and that's important too, the truly important thing gets overlooked. What is the core essence of finding a job? It's whether we truly love and are passionate about the work, whether we can grow with the company, and whether we can create value for others. This alone is what matters most. All the other so-called priorities are results that follow naturally once this is achieved. Likewise, when looking for a life partner, many people focus on property, job, family background, and countless other factors, but they forget to ask themselves, what is the most important quality in the person I will spend the rest of my life with? Superficial values are dangerous because they always sound so reasonable, leading the majority to follow them blindly, even when they might be wrong. Being deceived by superficial values is the fundamental reason we are unable to think simply. So, how can we cut through the noise of superficial values and engage in true simple thinking? This is the third topic of the book, and the answer lies in its subtitle: Grasp the Essence, Streamline Everything. The reason we get bogged down by superficial values is ultimately because we lack a clear judgment of what is truly important. If we can identify the most important essence of a matter, we can decisively discard everything else. The question is, how do we find the essence of a problem? The author believes that in both work and life, there is a crucial standard for grasping the essence. Ask yourself if thinking about this thing makes you feel happy. Why does finding the essence start with your own happiness? The author shares a personal story. At 30, he was working in the IT department of a Japanese television network. He didn't like the job but didn't know what he wanted to do, and he was miserable every day. One day, completely fed up, he asked his mother, "Mom, what did I seem happiest doing when I was a kid?" His mother answered without hesitation, "When you were catching bugs." This answer was a revelation. He remembered how, as a child, he could spend an entire summer day happily catching insects in the fields, releasing them, and then joyfully starting all over again. His mother's words awakened a deep-seated desire. He realized he had always been a person who loved to pursue and explore new things. In college, he played jazz and loved to experiment with innovative interpretations. He even built his own instruments, finding immense joy in the process. He finally understood. If a job didn't allow him to constantly encounter and explore new things, he couldn't be happy. After this realization, the author's life trajectory changed completely. He made the pursuit of new things his life's guiding principle. For this, he overcame immense difficulties, continuously challenged himself with new ventures, and was willing to have his salary and give up money and status to stick to this standard. Ultimately, he founded Line, creating the fastest-growing messaging app in the world. And as he was writing this book, Morikawa had once again stepped down, leaving his role as CEO of Line to become an advisor, and had thrown himself into a completely new industry by starting a video company. So, the author says to grasp the essence, you must first find what you love. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you won't feel happy, you won't be able to stick with it, and you certainly won't be able to excel at it. If you can't find your own happiness, you can't judge what is truly important, and you'll just be swayed by others' opinions, thinking this is right and that's right too. In that case, being misled by superficial values is inevitable. In his famous Stanford commencement speech, Steve Jobs said, "The only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle." This isn't an empty platitude, it's a truth he lived by. So, does simply following your passion and doing what you love mean you've grasped the essence? The author says that's not enough. To grasp the essence, you cannot be self-centered, you must also provide value to others and make them happy too. This might sound contradictory, be happy, but don't be self-centered, but it's not. The author recounts another one of his failures. While serving as the head of gaming at Hongame, he became convinced that the future of gaming was real-time processing. For example, if you were vacationing at the beach, the game scenery should sync to show a beach. If it was raining at your house, it should start raining in the game too. The more he thought about it, the more he believed this idea was world-changing. Despite strong opposition from the entire company, the author insisted the idea was critical and pushed development forward. It turned out that users had zero interest. The project ended up being a solo passion project that nobody else cared about. This failure taught him that if you only consider your own preferences and happiness while ignoring others, your project is doomed to fail. After deep reflection, he adjusted his thinking to find the intersection of what made him happy and what made others happy. He eventually found it: live streaming games with the players. The energetic atmosphere of a live event is the best way to engage users, boosting both game sales and the user experience. To make this happen, he started hosting weekly events. As expected, users loved the live streams. Attendance grew from a few thousand to 10,000, then 50,000, and eventually reached a peak of 100,000 concurrent viewers. One user even commented that they were so moved they cried in front of their computer. And behind this massive event was a startup with only a handful of people. They were responsible for game development, PR, and marketing, and still had to squeeze in time for the weekly events. They were so exhausted they ended up sleeping in the stairwells of residential buildings, pouring every spare moment into their work. But during that time, the author didn't feel tired at all. Instead, he felt incredibly happy. This taught him that you can only find true happiness by making others happy. This is a law to live by. The author concludes that to grasp the essence, you must first ensure you are doing something you truly love and that you are happy in the process of giving it your all. This is the prerequisite, otherwise, you won't be able to persevere or overcome challenges. Second, you must think about how to create value for others and how to make them happy too. You must understand that you can only achieve true happiness by making others happy. This principle applies equally to businesses. The essence of business is an ecosystem of users and the company. While profits are important, what truly benefits a company in the long run is benefiting its users. We must first create valuable products for our users, and the users will naturally return that value to the company. So, if you've grasped the essence, is success guaranteed? Not quite. We must also streamline everything and resolutely remove superficial values from our lives. As the saying goes, if I knew where I was going to die, I wouldn't go there. Similarly, if we know which things will trap us in the pitfall of superficial values, the best course of action is to avoid them entirely. If you believe that talented people are the key to a company's success, then you must work with the best. When hiring, don't focus excessively on superficial values like age, resume, or past job titles. They will only cloud your judgment. The only thing you need to look at is whether this person has the passion and ability to meet users' needs. If you believe that unleashing employees' full potential is what creates great products, then don't create excessive rules and evaluation systems. These constraints will only hold them back and prevent their strengths from shining. You may achieve the superficial value of a standardized system, but you'll lose true creativity. The author presents many such counterintuitive ideas in his book, such as don't make plans, don't share information, don't hire big shots, don't try to boost morale, and don't chase innovation. Under Morikawa's principle of insist on thinking about the essence and bravely eliminate all superficial values. These management tenets we once took for granted become unimportant. This principle applies not only to work but to life as well. For us as individuals, having the courage to stick to what's most important and eliminate things that seem important but are actually trivial is equally vital. When facing any major life choice, finding a job, a partner, or anything else, we must ask ourselves, am I being misled by the superficial values that others talk about? Am I doing what is truly important? Have I thought about what the essence of this issue is? Only by thinking about what truly matters can we avoid being confused by the clutter of, this is important, and that's important too. This method of grasping the essence and streamlining everything echoes the philosophy of Kazuo Inamori, Japan's legendary god of management. From his book A Compass to Fulfillment, life's problems are complex, but the most fundamental principle is to ask, what is the right thing to do as a human being? In fact, it was after joining Mr. Inamori's private management school, Seiwa Juku, that Morikawa gained a deeper understanding of this issue. Don't be fooled by superficial values. Instead, use 100% of your energy to do the 1% of things that are most important. Alright, that covers the core content of the book Simple Thinking. To sum up, people fall into confusion and indecision because we aren't clear on what is truly important, making us easily misled by superficial values. And the truly important thing is often just one thing. Therefore, the author advises us to think simply. How do we do it? The answer is, grasp the essence and streamline everything. First, the standard for grasping the essence is to achieve a non-self-centered happiness. Second, to streamline everything means to resolutely eliminate the superficial values that cloud our judgment. Congratulations, you've just finished another book.